Welcome to Wanna Be Clutter-Free, formerly Wanna Be Minimalist, the podcast for busy families who are tired of the chaos, fed up with being overwhelmed, and ready to enjoy life again. Each week, we talk about how to let go of the clutter so that you can focus on the things that actually matter. And it's not just physical clutter. We talk about the mental and emotional stuff too, because if it's holding you back, it's time to ditch it. I share what I've done in my own life to declutter, organize, and calm the chaos, but you won't just hear it from me. There are amazing guests too. It's practical, doable, and simple for those of us that want to be clutter-free. This is the Wanna Be Minimalist Show with Deanna Yates, episode number 39. On today's episode, we are talking to intentional living coach Sarah Baehr about how she found simplicity and intention amidst chaos in a really challenging year. I was super inspired by Sarah's perspective, and I think you're going to find a lot of inspiration today too. Hey there, welcome back to the show. As always, I'm your host, Deanna Yates, creator of littlegreenbow.com and your resident wannabe minimalist. In today's episode, I'm having a conversation with intentional living coach Sarah Baehr from the BaehrNecessities.com. Sarah and I chat today about where she found herself in 2012 and how the events of that year led her on a journey toward minimalism. Back then, she and her husband realized that a few poor financial decisions put them in a tough position as they looked toward their future. It's a reality a lot of us can relate to, and that's why I'm so happy to have Sarah on as a guest today. Instead of burying her head in the sand, she and her husband decided to make a change. And not just a little change. But I'm getting ahead of myself, and it's better if you hear the story from Sarah anyway. She and I connect on so many points, but I am excited most for you to discover how Sarah's positive attitude and spirit of gratitude shine through the microphone. After recording this, I was excited to work on creating more moments of gratitude with my family, and I hope it inspires you too. Sarah is a wife, a mom of 2 girls, and their beloved pug, as well as an intentional living coach. She is passionate about helping overwhelmed moms cultivate their homes and lives simply, beautifully, and on purpose. After moving twice and having a second child in less than 12 months, she found there was more to life and motherhood than a packed schedule and possessions. Sarah encourages moms to kick clutter and chaos in order to find more joy in motherhood, just as she did. It's another great episode, and when you're finished listening, be sure to head over to littlegreenbow.com/39 to get the show notes for today's episode and to pick up that freebie that Sarah's giving us today about helping your children with gratitude. I don't want to spoil the fun too much and tell you about our conversation before we have it, so just remember to pick up the show notes for today's episode and links for everything we chat about by going to littlegreenbow.com/39. Okay, that's enough housekeeping. Let's get to our conversation. Hi, Sarah. Welcome to the Wanna Be Minimalist Show.
Hi, Diana. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I'm happy to have you here today. So I always like to start the show with our listeners learning more about you. So can you tell me, more about you and what led you to minimalism or living a more simple life with intention?
Yes. So I am a mom of 2 girls who are 6 and 8, but our story really started back in 2012. My husband and I really hit a breaking point and realized that we needed to make some financial changes because of some poor choices we made earlier in our marriage. And so we started Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University. And in doing so, we just learned about contentment and budgeting and being more thoughtful about our purchases. And so over those next couple years, that kind of led us to realize we also needed to get our income up. And so when we looked at the area we were living in, there wasn't many options. And so we actually made a hard choice to move our family from Ohio to Tennessee in 2014. At that time, we were also expecting our second child, our daughter who's now 6. We really had a lot of changes that year, and that's kind of what led us into this. So we moved, we had a daughter, and then we moved again and bought a house within 6 months.
Holy moly.
And so obviously we had 2 moves, which meant, we're trying to kind of purge things. We were in 2 different spaces and things weren't fitting the way they used to. So we were kind of forced into getting rid of things. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing so, I realized how much lighter I felt. I just didn't have as much to manage. to clean up and take care of. And it just felt great. And so I started to kind of research better ways to declutter, to be more intentional about that. And it really led me into the minimalism and being more intentional about what we're bringing into our home, because I was tired of having to purge everything. And so that's just kind of where it started.
Awesome. I always love hearing these stories about how it can be a slow and gradual process, and you kind of make these decisions based on, kind of where you are in life. So I just love that. I love that you really focused, you really pinpointed where you felt stuck, and then was able to make this big life change from that, because that's a lot happening in your life in 1 year. You're going from not only, 3 people in your family, now you're adding a fourth, human to the mix, and you're moving, and moving is so stressful, and moving with children is so stressful. We did that. We moved when our daughter was 1. We've moved when she was 4. We've moved when she was 3. We have moved a lot. And but that's a lot. So for our listeners that are going through a lot, and right now who isn't, with the threat of schools not opening and many of us working from home these days, how do you recommend that we center ourselves and start living with more intention?
Well, I think you kind of pinned it down in your comment that the best thing to do is to really figure out where you're struggling the most right now and pick one thing and work on that. So if, for example, you are a mom of young children and there's just toys everywhere, you're so tired of picking them up all the time, and the kids just aren't helping you, and that's just a big frustration, I suggest you pick that and you start there. And, start to whittle down the amount of toys that you have, start to put some systems in place for storing them so that the kids can help you to put things away. And, and you can start small. It doesn't have to be a huge life change. These little things that you make, these little changes you make over time really add up. And that's where you'll start to really feel a big difference.
Awesome. And toys really are... Well, toys and kids things in general are one of the things I get asked about a lot. So can you tell me more about how you've decluttered with your kids or introduced them to minimalism, and what's worked well for you guys?
Yeah. So when I started this process, as you recall, my girls were young, right? I had a newborn and a 2-year-old. So at that point, I was able to kind of get rid of what I wanted to get rid of, and it wasn't a huge deal. As they've gotten older, I've brought them into that process. And I say my husband is a part of this as well, but I'm the main one who's working through this with them.
Totally get that. I totally get it.
I like to explain to them, why we're doing this. We're doing it to make better choices with our money, to make better choices for the environment. All these plastic toys that we're buying and just getting rid of are going to the landfill, and they're just going to sit there. So we want to be mindful of things like that. And so we tie that in as we're, going through and decluttering.
Yeah. Okay. So your girls were very young, so you were able to kind of pick those things. Were there certain toys you avoided or certain, ways you stopped things coming into the house from the beginning?
I'm Margaret.
And I'm Amy.
And together we host the podcast, What Fresh Hell? Laughing in the Face of Motherhood.
Margaret, I would say you're sort of a where are my keys kind of mom.
Correct. Sometimes a where are my kids kind of mom. Well, you're, Amy, more of a we were supposed to leave 35 seconds ago, mom.
I mean, touche. In each episode of What Fresh Hell, we come at a topic from our usually completely opposite perspectives. I bring the research.
And I bring kind of the gimlet eye. Like, is that research really going to work, people?
And almost 10 million downloads later, we're still laughing.
We also talk to experts in the parenting field, plus parents with stories we can all learn from.
We make each other laugh, we challenge each other's assumptions, and we have what we think is the best parenting community on the internet.
Check out What Fresh Hell? Laughing in the Face of Motherhood wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yes, a few different things. One, we focused more on open-ended toys, and so that was what we focused on keeping, and or if we were bringing anything new into the home or giving grandparents gift ideas or something, we were trying to be more intentional with the type of toys we were suggesting. Second, we really tried to set boundaries so that when people were giving toys, it was intentional, and we also asked if they could focus on experiences if possible. And that's kind of what we tried to do ourselves, was to focus on the experiences at gift giving time versus toys.
Yeah, I love those. I'm a huge proponent of that. Museum passes, zoo passes, amusement park passes, anything like that where you can create memories. Yeah, that's a big one. So, and those are generally pretty expensive. So they're great grandparent gifts if that's possible for you.
Yes, absolutely. And or they can go in on it together too. We've had family members, say that we just say, this is something we really, really want. The kids would love this. And we do not mind if you want to go together and get us one gift. We are really okay with that. So it's again, just setting the boundaries.
Oh, that's a really good idea. It's a really good point to remind people that, again, there's so many different creative ways, to do that. And you can just say, look, we really want to, yes, go here, buy this pass, go on this vacation, do something. If you could just contribute to that, that would be the best gift that we, would like. So they, don't even have to do the whole thing. It could just be a contribution, no matter how small. It would be very helpful.
Well, and one other thing I would point out is that as the girls are getting a little older, they're more aware, that they're not getting as many gifts. And so there was a bit of a transition period from, well, there's not as many gifts under the tree, or I don't have as much to open, those type of things. And so they didn't throw tantrums or they weren't super upset, but it was noticed. And so we just continued to talk about it as we made that transition. And we said, we're going to get to go experience this awesome thing. And once they understood, they had to wait, but once they understood that we got to go do it, and then we've done that, year after year now, they're understanding of it. So I want you to know that it's not something that your kids are probably going to grasp right away. There's a transition period there.
Ah, good point. And I also have heard maybe buying them something small that represents the experience so that they have something to unwrap under the tree. If you're going to take them, I don't know, we could just say, I live in Southern California. So let's say you want to go to Disneyland or something, you could buy them Mickey ears or something that they could wear while they're at the park. And then it's something for them to open and experience. But again, that's a big gift.
It is. But, for example, you're exactly right. So this past Christmas, we went to Opryland Hotel, which is not too far from our house. Yeah. And they now have an indoor water park. So the girls were really excited about that. So I found one of the photo printing places that you can get those things printed online. They offered puzzles that you could get printed with your own photograph. So I took a photograph of Opryland and they put it on there, and that was their gift. They opened up this puzzle. They had to put it together. And once they got it together, they were just ecstatic to know that that's where we were going. So the joy wasn't just, in opening the gift and seeing a paper that said, hey, we're doing this. There was more to it. And so there are ways to be creative.
Very cool. Oh, that's very fun. And you actually took the words kind of out of my mouth earlier when you started to go back to that, because yes, as they get older, they do start to see when they go to birthday parties, let's say, maybe the kids get more presents, or they see these, movie renditions of Christmas where there's tons of presents under the tree or things like that. So thanks for circling back to that, because it can get a little more difficult when they get older. But I find that when they get older, they start to want the more expensive gifts, things that are a little bit smaller but more expensive.
Yes.
So we're not quite there yet. Mine's only 7, so we're not quite into the electronics, but it's coming. I know.
Yes.
Okay, so you've kind of talked to them about minimalism and decluttering. And did you start that early, or was that something it just kind of gradually came along, didn't it?
It really did, because of the time frame of when I got into it. With them being younger, like I said, I was just kind of doing it more for me. And so it just felt natural to bring them into it and teach them along the way. Now, had my girls been a little bit older, there would have been probably a lot more teaching, and, living by example obviously helps involved in that. So.
Very cool. Now, how do you keep it out? So now you have kind of this decluttered system. How do you help your girls decipher what to keep and what not to keep? And, do you have any tips for anybody that might be starting that's like, okay, we went from this really cluttered home and kid space, we've decluttered it. Now, how do I keep that clutter out?
So I'd say probably my biggest tip is to set boundaries. Once you kind of feel like you've established a reasonable amount, you've decided this is the space for our toys, we have created bins that are specific to, maybe they like to play with these little miniature dolls. Okay, so this bin is for the miniature dolls, and when that gets full, or if that gets full, then we have to make some choices. We have to decide if we're going to keep something or if we're going to get rid of something. And that has really helped them because it's visual. They can see, oh, this bin is full. I'm going to have to make a choice. And they know that now. So that's probably my number one tip. And it's not that we don't allow them to buy new things or bring new things into the home either. In fact, my daughter right now has been saving some of her birthday money and really wanting to get a new doll. And she's already thinking, okay, what do I have here that I can, donate and pass along to someone else to make room for this new toy? So,
nice. What's the new hot thing on her list? I'm always curious.
She's big into American Girl dolls right now.
Oh, okay.
So,
mine's just on the cusp of it. She's not quite there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she has a girl doll, and so she found at Target within her price range, there's a boy doll that she wants to.
Oh, interesting.
So they can play together, and I'm sure, I have a boyfriend. We're
sure
getting of that age, so thinking about boys a little bit.
It's so cute, isn't it? Oh, man. You're like, don't grow up so fast. Stop.
Yes.
Plenty of time. One of the other things, I've looked on your blog and I've looked at some of your articles, and you talk a lot about gratitude. So I want to talk to you and kind of switch gears from decluttering with kids. And I think some of it will spill over to the children as well. But I just want to know, how do you incorporate gratitude into your life on a regular basis? Because I think that's really important too.
It is. And it really goes right along with the minimalism thing, and intentional living, because you're just being more mindful of everything. But specifically when you talk gratitude, you want to be thankful and content with the things that you have. I practice gratitude daily. I have a journal and I write 5 things each day that I'm grateful for. And I start with that in the morning just because it really helps me. I think about it from the previous day. What 5 things am I really grateful for? And they're small things. It's, a snuggle from my daughter in the morning when she got up, or just a good cup of coffee, or we have a garden right now. So being able to pick vegetables with my daughters, it doesn't have to be this big thing. And I think that's where you really start to open your eyes in the wonder of what we really have. And we have a lot. Regardless of what your income is, there are always things to be grateful for.
Absolutely. And right now we are recording this in July of 2020. So, things are still kind of crazy over here in the US with this coronavirus pandemic. And even now, there are so many things to be grateful for, even when the world feels like it is turned upside down. And I am super jealous of your garden because we live in a townhome with a teeny tiny little patio, and I just haven't gotten my stuff together to have a container garden just yet. But, that must be so nice to have that kind of just space to be out in nature, even within your own backyard. So that's really nice.
Yes.
So very nice. Well, now, do you do any of these gratitude practices with your children? And if so, how has that gone over? And 2, how do you do that?
Okay, we do it with our children. And again, I started first. Because I'm finding that, leading by example is one of the best ways to teach them. And so I started doing it and seeing the change. And I realized, this would be great for them because, again, they were kind of, oh, I want more toys, or I want this. And so I wanted to focus on reminding them that they have enough. And, we want to be thankful for what we have and learn to be content. And so we started that actually by just sharing something that we're grateful for at dinner. We would just go around the dinner table and share, 1 or 2 things that we were grateful for. And the kids are still learning about that. Like, they still share about big things. I'm thankful just for mom and dad, or so theirs might not be quite what mine is, and that is totally fine. We let them make it what they want, but we have gone ahead and created a journal that they can write those things down in, like I'm doing now. And so we have begun to incorporate that into the morning routine as well, to where they're only writing 3 things because, again,
they're young.
Yeah. And I help the youngest because sometimes she doesn't want to write.
Yeah. I hear ya.
Yeah.
Get it?
You want them to enjoy it. You don't want to force it. And so that's kind of where we're at now, that they're actually starting to journal some of those things with me.
Oh, and I can imagine that a year from now, it's going to be really interesting to look back and to see. And they'll have this little time capsule of their year. And I think things will, evolve over time and they'll change. And it'll be really interesting for them to be able to look back at that. So that's a brilliant idea. I love it. Plus, it then gets them writing a little bit, which is always good.
Yes, especially now, not knowing what school is. I mean, any time we're working those skills is wonderful.
Absolutely. Well, this has been so much fun, and that gratitude part is wonderful. So if someone was starting that today, what are some ways that my listeners can start being more grateful just right now, even today?
Just stop for a minute. Stop for a minute and get quiet and think of what brought you joy today. Was it the smell of your morning coffee? Was it, like I said, a hug from your child or your spouse? It's really just pausing for a moment to think, what was it that made me smile or brought me joy today?
Nice. So where can people find you online? This has been wonderful, Sarah, and I really enjoyed it. And I know my listeners will want to look you up as well.
So I have a blog called The Baehr Necessities. Baehr is spelled in a unique way, so I'm going to spell that. It is Baehr, which is our last name. Awesome. So there's a little bit of a pun there. So that's the blog, and the same, I can be found on Facebook and Instagram at The Baehr Necessities. Those are the 2 social media platforms that I use most.
Oh, fantastic. Which one do you prefer?
Probably Instagram, because I'm a visual person.
Aha! Well, you pointed that out with your daughters, so that makes sense. So I always like to end each interview with 3 somewhat rapid-fire questions. The first one is, what has been your favorite simple pleasure this week?
I would have to say this week has been listening to one of my favorite songs, most recent favorite songs, which is Be the Light by Thomas Rhett. It's just a song that fits the times right now and just kind of reminds you to be the light, to be positive. And so the girls and I just love to blare that, and that's a really fun time.
Awesome. Very fun. And what is the best advice about minimalism or intentional living that you've ever received?
I've received a lot of information, and so many quotes would come to mind, but I think one of the most eye-opening things I heard was that you can only control your choices and your attitude. And so if this is something, that you want to get started, you can do that. You don't need other people to do that. And I think at first I wanted to maybe change my husband right away and get him on it. And so really just focus on making some of these baby steps within your life first. Be the example. That always comes to mind when I think of these big changes, is that it's only me that I can control, not everyone else.
Absolutely. You know what? It comes back to that so many times. So I agree. That is one of the best pieces of advice that I have heard over the years as well, is you have to start with you. Mm-hmm. And it really does go out from there. Okay. And the third question is, what is making you happy right now or in this season of your life?
Well, again, there are a few things that come to mind, but I think the most recent is that I took the plunge and I uninstalled the Facebook app from my phone. And I know I did it though. And it has made me be more intentional when I get on social media. So again, I said I do prefer Instagram. So I kind of left that. I still find a lot of joy in that, but I found that Facebook was really draining me. So I got rid of that, and I have found much more happy.
Good. All right, everybody, you're going to challenge you if you're feeling a little down and social media is getting to you. I mean, you can be like Sarah and uninstall Facebook, you brave soul.
Yep. Step away for a little bit. And I'll clarify. I do get on my computer on Facebook once in a while because I have, blog posts and things that I'm sharing. Yeah. I have a business. But like I said, it's more intentional now. So.
Yeah, that mindless scrolling really... Ooh, it's a trap. It really is.
Yeah.
So good for you. Oh, Sarah, that's been fantastic. Well, thank you so much. And honestly, if you're listening, go check out Sarah at thebaehrnecessities.com. Sarah, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks. You too. Bye.
All right. So what are you starting with today? I love Sarah's perspective of starting today and starting with ourselves. There's no prep necessary, and all you need to do is stop, take a breath, and challenge yourself to find things to be grateful for. It will probably only take a minute or two. Go ahead, hit pause, take a breath, and think of 5 things you are grateful for. Then come back. If you were able to take that minute, you're probably feeling a moment of calm and clarity. And if you are interested in this journey toward minimalism and living a better life with less clutter, I agree with Sarah that the best way really is to start with you. Leading by example shows your family that you are committed to this. And once they see a positive change in you, they will be on board. If you start going after their things before dealing with your own, they will dig in their heels and they will resist. You would hate someone coming in and tossing your things too, so just don't even go there. Lead with compassion, gratitude, and love. Thanks again to Sarah for being a guest on the Wanna Be Minimalist show and for sharing some amazing advice with us. Don't forget you can get all of the information for today's episode, including links to Sarah's website and her freebie about helping your kids with gratitude at littlegreenbow.com/39. Once again, get all of the show notes and the links for everything we talk about today on my website at littlegreenbow.com/39. And before we go, as always, I love hearing from you. So if you have any questions about what we talked about today or any other topics you would like to see us talk about on the show, please reach out either via email at hello@littlegreenbow.com or on Facebook at facebook.com/littlegreenbow. That just about wraps it up for this episode of the Wanna Be Minimalist show. Thank you so much for joining me today. And if you liked what you heard, it really would mean the world to me if you would leave a review on iTunes. And while you're there, please just take 1 minute to subscribe so that you are notified of new episodes. And next week, be sure to join me when I will be talking about how to declutter your entire home in one weekend. It sounds impossible, but with a little planning, awesome music, and a great attitude, we can do it. I'll see you next week. Bye.